Let's try and bury the cult of ABBA once and for all. It may seem weird to some of you younger people, even inexplicable, but there was a time in the late 1970s, early 1980s, when many of us hated ABBA. Now you may be asking yourself, how could anybody loathe those Swedish, fun-loving popsters? Well, punk was one reason. Let's go back to 1974 when ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest in Brighton, in England, and crashed onto the pop scene. And this was a time when glam rock was in its death agonies. All those glittery bands we loved in the early 1970s proved to have feet of clay. And I'm talking about people like Sweet, Mark Bolan. They just lost their magic. The mid-70s kind of felt like a deflating balloon in musical terms. We'd had such great rock and pop acts through the 1960s, the early 1970s, and then everything hit the ground with a thud. So ABBA kind of came along at the right moment with their plinky-plonky, optimistic sound. They were filling a void that needed filling. But then 2 years later, something happened, and that something was punk. It came into our lives like a snarling adolescent and demanded our complete attention. It's hard to convey now the kind of nihilist attitude behind punk, but basically we were led to believe it was year zero in musical terms, that everything before punk had been rubbish. And of course, we had to deny ever having been into such terrible things as prog rock or glam or heavy metal. And we'd even trade in our old records, desperately trying to raise the money to buy the new punk stuff. To many of us, ABBA suddenly became dinosaurs. And by the time we got to the early 1980s, and they were just releasing increasingly dreary songs about their acrimonious divorces, most of us just thought, God, are they still going? Right at the end of the 1970s and at the very start of the 1980s in Britain, we just had so much to choose from. We had new wave, which had been born out of punk. We had reggae. We had the new wave of British heavy metal. We had the kind of fag end of disco. There was the whole ska two-tone thing going on. So there was lots happening. And ABBA really was low down on our list of things to buy at the record store. In a TV interview around 1982, ABBA said that they were no longer enjoying making music, and well, a lot of us weren't enjoying listening to it. And so when they split up, the overwhelming reaction was meh. And well, we thought they were dead for a few years. Now, I remember in 1987 at a party, a music journalist came up to me and said, you know, ABBA are going to be very big again soon. And I thought, are you kidding? Well, he was right. The ABBA Gold CD came out and suddenly we had ABBA all over us again. And for the last 30 years, we've had ABBA shoved down our collective throat relentlessly. Anybody dissenting from this European schlager with hints of disco in it has been told that they don't understand music, they must hate pop music, they must need their ears tested, they even lack basic humanity. The low point for me in this ABBA adulation was the movie Mamma-mia. Absolutely unwatchable. On its release, I concurred with the film critic who said that he had a strong need to vomit. And as for the karaoke ABBA from well-known actors, one described it as listening to a donkey braying, while another said it sounded like a wounded raccoon. What annoys me about the whole ABBA fixation is that it's completely eclipsed so much of the amazing stuff that was going on in the 1970s. ABBA wasn't half or even quarter of the story of the 70s, and yet so much music has now been neglected. And I've always suspected that the high priests of the ABBA cult are people, well, nerds to be frank, who never really got punk and wouldn't know a good disco anthem if it mugged them down an alleyway. No, well, I'm fighting a losing battle anyway. ABBA has won, or as they might say, the winner takes it all.